Tolstoy's book opens with the sudden death of its protagonist, Ivan Ilyich, and the reactions of those who surround him, his so-called friends, his family, and mainly his colleagues. Tolstoy immediately delves into the despicable feelings, hidden thoughts, and reactions that arise uncontrollably among people when they face the death of another for the very first time. Just think, it could happen to me at any time now, he thought, and he felt that momentary pang of fear. But immediately he was saved, without knowing how, by the old familiar idea that this had happened to Ivan Ilyich, not him, and it could not and would not happen to him. This is where Freud's intellectualization and rationalization mechanisms come into play, as we distance ourselves from the psychological threat that terrifies us. This person is somewhat right, as death never encounters us directly, rather, it faces us through the death of others. One is not aware of the fact that they are dead, yet they certainly see, experience, and are aware of the death of others. Following this prologue, which is merely the inevitable end for each and every one of us, Tolstoy begins describing the life of Ivan Ilyich, from childhood to his end. Pay attention to the opening phrase of this chapter. The past history of Ivan Illich's life was simple, commonplace, and most terrible. Tolstoy subtly inserts his ideas and thoughts by exhibiting a surprising and miraculous contrast. How is it possible to have a simple and normal, yet horrible life? On one hand, it seems like other people's lives are special, yet eventually, most of us live by life compared to how we picture it. We live generic lives bound by the guidelines of external forces without truly choosing our own paths. And so, Ivan Ilyich, at the end of his life, realizes that he was a simple person without any meaningful or genuine achievement, instead obsessively aspiring after what was socially accepted around him. Following Ivan's illness, he begins meeting with doctors who treat him the way he himself treated his defendants in court. The great power he possessed over other people for so many years in court is now meaningless to him. He now lacks all influence and suddenly finds himself subject to the thoughts and decisions of the medical staff. He suddenly meets inferiority, the delicate fragility of being human. As his condition worsens, he becomes more desperate for any advice that will sound reasonable to his lost soul. He tries to follow his doctor's orders as accurately as possible. Nevertheless, Ivan Ilyich began following the instructions meticulously, and even found some comfort in this at first. It seems that at this point of crisis, it becomes significant for a person to rely on knowledgeable figures as the person feels abandoned, left out, human. It is such a huge absurdity that during his lifetime, as he holds on to life, Ivan Ilyich, and most of us, does not notice that he still relies on knowledgeable figures who, in most cases, dictate his destiny, ambitions, searches, and decisions for him on the most meaningful themes of life: occupation, marriage, family, faith, etc. If we think of our life scenario, of our parents' views on major issues, of how society influences us, of how religion influences us, we might ask, how much of this even belongs to us? Have we ever done anything that is not linked to them, their demands? Have we expressed anything from within ourselves? As said, there is no such thing as a good answer. It is a question with which one must confront. But unlike the healthy life he has known his entire life, during which it is so hard to spot the ones who make the decisions that make your life not yours. Now, when his body struggles against all consensuses, now, when his body unthoughtfully betrays him, now he realizes that he has nothing to hold on to. He can look back, a month or two back, and see how the illness has worsened, how he is in decline despite all the knowledgeable figures' advice and all the so-called experts. Not only that, but the absolute loneliness of being ill forces Ivan Ilyich to confront his deepest sensations regarding the suffering of others. He takes onto himself some kind of existential guilt, a new discomfort, he causes his wife, which raises the great question: what is the meaning of suffering? And why do we struggle so hard to save and protect others who are experiencing immense suffering when there is no cure, and the suffering keeps getting greater and greater? This question disturbs many around the world and has numerous answers. Some in Sweden see no meaning in suffering and seek to dive into deep sleep. Others find a religious refinement in suffering, such as redemption for sins. There are also the vast majority who are simply unwilling to give up on life and are willing to live no matter what. Pay attention to the harsh words Tolstoy uses to describe the infinite suffering. And he had to live in this way, on the very edge of destruction, without a single being who might understand and pity him. As his condition worsens, Ivan Ilyich's denial and repression regarding his upcoming death weaken. He begins to realize that it's not a matter of the blind gut or the kidney, but of life and death. Yes, there was life and now it's going, and I can't hold it back. He faces something inevitable to which one is seldom able to prepare, unlike an unexpected death. He faces his own death. Who can possibly imagine their own death? Each of us behaves differently when confronted with the idea of their death, and it is interesting how it affects us and stirs our decisions throughout our lifetime. As his denial weakens, Ivan Ilyich begins to face life as it is, without all the lies and false purposes he has held on to for his entire life, and begins asking existential, hard and complex questions, so terrifying, yet finally so deep and human. I'll be no more, and then what will there be? Nothing. Then where will I be when I will be no longer? Is this really death? Go away. I don't want you. Tolstoy then presents a model example of the essential denial in the face of extreme challenges, such as extinction. He describes how Ivan Ilyich recalls the logical term of syllogism, two premises from which a single inference must be drawn. Caius is a man, men are mortal, therefore Caius is mortal. It had always seemed to him correct only in relation to Caius, not to himself. As I said in the beginning, it is easy for us to believe that only others die, and that we are so special, so beloved, immune from this reality. We can easily and secretly convince ourselves that the light is dark and the darkness is full of light. This self-distortion can become a psychological treasure and even, in some cases, a never-ending shattering. Ivan Ilyich has already realized that his end is near and all of his self-comforting and self-denial are useless. Now he must face the human beings who still possess this denial, these common fictions, these manners and this respect, which insults his existence so much. He is tired of their lies, tired of their lack of courage to express the truth before him, the truth about his upcoming death. He found this lie insufferable. He was tormented by the fact that nobody wanted to admit what he knew, what everyone knew, but chose to lie to him about his dreadful state. They wanted, even forced him to participate in the same lie. Lying, the lie inflicted on him on the eve of his death, the lie which was bound to degrade the fearful solemn scene of his death to the level of all those visits, curtains, and sturgeons for dinner. This was a dreadful affliction for Ivan Ilyich. And it was strange. Many times when they were doing their stuff over him, he was within a whisker of shouting at them, "Stop lying. You know? And I know I'm dying, at least you could stop lying to me." But he never had the spirit to do so. A few hours later, as he realizes in agony how the world keeps on turning, Ivan Ilyich could see that the terrifying, awesome act of his dying was reduced by everyone around him to the level of a casual unpleasantness, to some extent an offense against propriety, rather in the way people behave to someone who brings a bad smell into the room with him. Ivan Ilyich continues to sense the human fragility. He is already a part of it, capable of observing the small steps that lead to the end. He is afraid to look in the mirror when he changes his shirt. He is afraid of being alone. It is dreadfully sad on his own. He longs to call somebody, but knows in advance that it is even worse with others there. If only I could have some morphine, I might lose consciousness. Forgetting ourselves often provides us a so-called solution to the human dread that might touch us at moments when we are on the edge. Being in those moments is such an unimaginable horror. Therefore, it is so pleasant to simply not be. And as if all of this seems not enough, and if it seems as if Tolstoy has already written his deepest thoughts regarding the world, he continues to lead us through the delicate and mysterious paths of the soul, while Ivan Ilyich is in deep sorrow. Thoughts about God, in whom he does not believe, invade him. He was crying for his helplessness, his terrible loneliness, people's cruelty, God's cruelty, the absence of God. Why have you done all this? Why did you bring me here? What have I done that you torment me so dreadfully? He did not even expect an answer and cried because there was no answer, and there could be no answer. The pain rose up again, but he did not stir and did not call out. He said to himself, "Go on, batter me, but what for? What have I done to you? What is it for?" Tolstoy ingrains in us the fact that there is no ethical answer to the question, why do we suffer? He emphasizes that suffering is merely an intrinsic part of being human, without any option of eliminating it, resisting it, or even expecting it to be otherwise. This helplessness in dealing with suffering is a given in the game rules of life. Within the silence that surrounds his questions, he begins asking himself deeper questions. What do you need? What do you want? Thus, an inner discourse begins regarding what kind of life he wishes to live from now on. Yet even before that, and because of that, he is forced to examine his previous life through a sharp pair of glasses, an introspection that often arises within our souls only at extreme times of horror. Ivan Ilyich tries to go through all of his life's happy moments, and apart from a few very basic happy moments from his childhood, it seems that all of his grown-up life has been a chase after common fictions. In public opinion, I was climbing up, and at just the same rate, life was slipping away from under me. It's all up now, time to die. Towards the end of the story, using different tones, Tolstoy expresses an essential point to his readers about life, and most importantly, about life without a present self. 1. Everything you once lived by and now live by is a lie, a fraud, hiding life and death from you. 2. He experienced that sensation he sometimes got in a railway carriage when you think you are moving forward while actually going backward, and suddenly realize your true direction. The great danger and painful lesson that Tolstoy tries to teach his readers is, in my opinion, to face life before horrible illnesses and degrading old age arrive. He asks people to observe their choices and not to willingly, even if unconsciously, become lost in a life scenario that has not emerged from within themselves. It is most definitely one of the most memorable books that left an impression on me, and I would very much like to hear your thoughts, feelings, and emotions regarding this brilliant work by Tolstoy. If you love my content, please subscribe. Leave a comment to please the YouTube algorithm, and share it with your friends for more reviews on wonderful books.